Welcome back to Visual Trigger.
So, a few weeks ago, actually like more than a month ago, people had said, "Oh, you should do something like a podcast." And the interesting thing was I'd never even listened to like a photography podcast, so I had to drive about 14 hours one way somewhere. So I listened to 14 hours straight of photography podcasts, and well, I discovered kind of a lot of things. Um, One, I'll have to work on saying and other things like that because just like I just did, people say that a lot. Also, some of them were 3 friggin' hours long, like 3 hours long. And I know if I had to do something that was 3 hours long, kind of like a photo blog, because those ended up taking like more than 6 hours to do. And I just had so much going on that doing 6 hours of anything just seems, I don't know, something that like I'm not going to do all the time. So, some of them were even longer than that. And some of them sounded as if it was just like three dudes who just talked about pretty much nothing. Um, I mean, it's when I thought about it, and it's funny because I figured I might as well roll video as well, and I thought I'd also see how an XT3 would handle, pretty much all the focusing because there's no way I'm setting up something elaborate. Maybe some light options if I decide to go this way, but what else did I discover? I discovered that some people's voices are super annoying, and I could listen to about perhaps 5 minutes. And now, although COVID was going on in Asia and where else? I think it was mostly Asia at the time. So it's like a pre COVID world. And when I'm thinking about these 14 hours of driving and where I was going, and like, I don't even know why I need these because those are reading glasses. I just, I went through probably 10 to a dozen of the most, it seemed to be popular ones that were listed on iTunes. And I might want to be a jerk about it, but I, the ones that I found semi interesting, on the other hand, they were pretty much semi pretentious too. Like, I just shoot film. I mean, I like shooting film just as much as the next guy. But I also have to use digital to actually make a living. And I know that there are wedding guys who just shoot film and that's all they do. And that's great, but I don't shoot weddings. I mean, after COVID, I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll all be shooting weddings. Um, I mean, I think like everybody else, everybody's lost assignments and gigs. And, I just see from social media, there's a lot of people sitting around. There's a lot of people making really shitty content too. Um, so when I think about what I would say in a whatever this is, because I mean I enjoyed blogging. Blogging was I don't know, it served a weird purpose back in when I started. Well, I mean they were called journals, and the platform that I did. DeviantArt. And I mean, is a blog? I don't even know what a blog really is anymore. Now there's vlogs. I have no idea what would compel someone to do all of their life. I mean, I saw some of these, not necessarily podcasts, but a lot of podcasts have associated YouTube accounts with them, and some of these people were doing 3 or 4 a week. 3 or 4 podcasts a week. Like, I would think a photographer would be out creating. Like, if I do anything like this, 15, 20 minutes max a week. And I mean, I don't even know if I can really commit to that. But I'd like to, I mean, I like I said, blogging served some kind of weird purpose for me. And I mean, did it ever help as a professional photographer? Not really. In fact, I wouldn't really want clients to listen because I was a dick in my blog. I'm old, whatever now. And I think that maybe the rough edges have kind of been like, eroded away, or just maybe the edges have softened a little bit. I know I probably shared way more in blogs back in the day than I ever thought I would ever share in a public kind of thing, even though it was like inside it was inside a platform, DeviantArt. And I mean, I still know a ton of people who I totally respect from that platform to this day. Conversely, it's also the common denominator with the people I unfriend on Facebook the most. But whatever. Yeah, how do you not say I'm gonna have to talk to a friend of mine. They're from radio, and it's funny because I talk to people who come from terrestrial radio. I didn't know that's what it was called. And they'll tell you what kind of mics to buy. And I really didn't feel like going out and spending another few $100 on a mic. I have a Sennheiser 416. I talked to the voiceover guys, and they use Sennheiser 416s and Sheps and other stuff in studio. So if they're using shotguns, you know what? I don't need to sound like fucking terrestrial radio. And I mean, I don't really listen to terrestrial radio. And in fact, the funny thing is, the podcasts I listen to are pretty much all national security oriented, not photography. And going back to photography ones, like, who has the time to listen to content it's almost not even good? Like, people call in camera reviews. Okay. What else was... My takeaway was, and I mean 14 hours, pretty much uninterrupted, of just photography podcasts. I tried to figure out what I liked about them. Most of the people who had guests on, they weren't even that great of interviewers. They pretty much just kissed this person's ass, who I literally had no idea who they were. And because I didn't really want to crash my car, I kind of make a mental note of the person's name and just look up their Instagram, just their Instagram, not their website. And I was kind of shocked that some of the most and I'm not saying all, I'm generalizing. I would say most of the ones who were the most pretentious had the most banal work on Instagram I'd ever seen. And I'm not saying that you need to have like thousands and hundreds of thousands of followers, but I would suspect someone who had this many subscribers, and let's just say it was 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers on iTunes, I would suspect they would have more than like 800 followers on Instagram. I mean, I have a stupid dog account. It's got like 3,000 followers. It's not that tough if that's what you want to do. And they didn't even have that. And I really tried to listen to the ones that were 3 hours long. I don't really have 3 hours to even sitting in a car driving 80 miles an hour down a highway. I still didn't have the 3 hours. And it made me wonder, what was it the same motivation I had to blog back from like 2002 to 2008 or whatever that it was? Is it the same thing? Because could I say more if I did a podcast rather than blog? Because I think blogging I'm done. I blogged. I came, I saw, I blogged. I got bored. There were weird things that happened that I didn't really expect, and I don't know if it was being popular on one kind of platform as opposed to another, or just like not being on a platform. But I also worked a lot, and I didn't really know too many working guys that really blogged all that often. So, or did almost any social media. In fact, some of the most popular people I know who work the most, they have very little social media at all. I mean, I would say I'm most active on Facebook, just, I don't know, by default. I post on Instagram on a couple different accounts. I know what I'd want to talk about. I mean, I'm not going to just try to sell you, well, I don't have any books to sell you how to sell pretty portraits, how to make more money being a wedding photographer, how to make more money during downtimes. And I just recently on Facebook, because anything photography related, they just serve my ass. And there's this one guy who has some kind, I guess he's a wedding photographer, and he was trying to sell a course on, and this was literally, let's see, I think this is when COVID-19 was just ramping up. And I think the day after, I got an ad served of how to build clients during this kind of time. And it wasn't a free thing. It was like you clicked it, and I did because I wanted to see. And it took you to his, like, everybody has something training, and this was some kind of training. And I mean, I ended up blocking him because I'm kind of tired of seeing advertisements during this time, and I don't even know why, because usually I ignore them, but right now ads and sponsored shit just really, it annoys me. And I think that everybody right now, we're all on pause. I mean, luckily I do have a long-term project that I landed prior to this, and it hasn't gotten canceled, and it can't because it's like a contract. So I feel fortunate to have that, and I can do work here and there on it. But, you know, some other things are canceled, and I feel like we're all on just pause right now. And if I see a business trying to get ahead during that time, I don't know, it just super annoys me. And this is a really lovely Glen Roth's 1998. But I know I took some notes, like what I wanted to talk about, things in the future. I don't know, that's a lot of writing. And that's why I had my glasses on before, and I can't fucking read it from there. But I kind of want to talk about a few things, and I'm going to put them on now because fucking got old and I can't fucking read anymore. I can still focus. I think I want to talk about, like, now everybody's a photographer and what you kind of can do to differentiate yourself from just Joe Blow who buys the whatever that Canon camera is that's at Best Buy and goes and tells everybody that they're a photographer. And what to do with all this free time because of COVID-19. And yeah, I've talked to dozens of freelance friends and emails literally stopped. And like I said about people who advertise, I mean, is marketing right now like ambulance chasing? Because I don't know, maybe it isn't. It is to me. I'd love to talk about street photography, what I think happened to it. I mean, you can't even do it now. I think they'll give you a ticket. And gear reviewers and review sites, literally the worst people in the world. It's fine to talk about gear, but I remember from blogging, if I wrote about gear, the numbers just spiked and I don't know. Is the next camera always the best thing? I don't think so. And that was another thing. Shoot what the fuck you have. We'll talk about something like that. Some of my favorite photo books. What happens when you get caught making street photographs? Of course, how to be popular on Instagram. I think that'd be a great topic. Like photo communities in general, why I think they're generally flawed. Recently, since December, I was able to, actually a year before that, this past December, I built a darkroom that, it's probably the last darkroom I'll ever build. And I think this one's perfect. Air conditioning. The last one I had, I could only really do it during the night. And that wasn't always a given in the summer because it didn't have air conditioning. This one has air conditioning. This one I can do year round. It's actually just, for me, it's perfect. I'm sure other people need bigger ones, but this one is just perfect. Getting into some platinum work. The considerations I had for building a new darkroom, maybe I'll even try to figure out a way I could do one of these down there in it. Manufacturers are just madams of whorehouses. That's my thought. Maybe how to edit your work, like my own workflow. I see a ton of people who I guarantee you have never shot for an actual client, and they're going to tell you they'll tell you how to do workflow. I don't know. An interesting thing I never talked about was my daughter. She completed Art Center, the photography program, and I would love to talk about so many things about Art Center. And I could probably do like 3 or 4 or 5 15-minute segments just on that. I think right now, COVID-19, photo industry changed forever. Many industries changed forever, especially the photography one. Wouldn't you rather become a good photographer than having a large following? It seems like likes, they're kind of like monopoly money, and monopoly money is actually something that's tangible, even though it isn't worth anything. But likes, I'm not even sure if they're tangible. Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to come up with more things, and don't want to knock over my whiskey or scotch. But I think the next time I want to talk about how COVID-19 has changed everything, especially for photographers. So, looks like this one was about 10 minutes long. Yeah, I think we're going to talk about COVID-19. And I've also got to think about what I'm told are intros and all sorts of crazy shit that I, for blogs, didn't even think about. So, I don't know. I guess we'll see. Hopefully you'll come along for the ride.